Time now for the Historic Racing News Podcast. Here is your host, Paul Tarsi.
Greetings, and welcome to this February edition of the Historic Racing News chat show powered by Race Retro. Now, before we start, ladies and gentlemen, I have some news for you, and that is that my colleagues, Jim Roller and Paul Jerd, are revolting.
Have we ever claimed to be anything other than revolting?
When I say they're revolting, they are in the act of revolution. And that is because...
He means the noun, not the
adjective. For the last couple of shows, I have introduced these two erudite gentlemen as the gruesome twosome. And they are revolting because they have decided that they're not either they are a twosome, but they are not gruesome. So I'm joined by the charming gentleman on my Historic Racing News colleagues, shall we say, Paul Jerd and Jim Roller. Welcome, gentlemen, the dynamic duo of historic motorsport.
I'm happy to be the Robin to Jim's Batman.
Oh my!
Are you both going to dress up for the
Aren't
next
we
show?
both just being obsequious?
I can rock a cape, I'll have you know.
Right, so you revolting pair. I'm going to move on. In this edition, we'll be talking about Group B rally cars. We're talking with Tim Foster, and Jim has some interesting news from Florida about the recent Mecum auctions. Andrea Seed will be joining us to give us a taster of what we can expect to see at Race Retro later this month. And Paul, you're going to be taking a look forward to some of the on-track activity, which we might expect to see during the course of 2026. But the first cab off the rank is Richard Jenkins, who has recently joined us to have a chat about March engineering. Many of all of us will know the history of March engineering as it started out being, which produced some amazing and let's be honest, some less than amazing cars over a 20-year period. The company was formed in 1969 and burst onto the Formula One scene at the very first Grand Prix of 1970. Brand new manufacturer, Formula One cars straight out of the box, and they had 5 cars on the grid for that first South African Grand Prix with a 701 chassis. The cars were from 3 different teams. There was a works team that was Chris Amon and Joe Siffert. There was a factory team, and there was also the factory team was Mario Andretti and Chris Amon, and then we had the Tyrrell team who were using those 701 cars as a stopgap until they built their first ever Tyrrell cars. I'm delighted to welcome Richard Jenkins to us, who is probably one of the country's leading experts on the whole thing of March engineering. Richard, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know that you've been living, eating and breathing the whole March engineering thing for quite a long time. Before they ever got to 1970, there was an awful lot of posturing and game playing and all sorts of stuff that went on before they ever built a car.
Yes, mainly by one particular founder. Obviously, just to for those not so familiar with the March story, there were 4 founders: Graham Coker, Alan Rees, Robin Hurd, and Max Mosley. Coker was very much a production guy, so it wasn't him. Rees had moved over from Roy Winkleman Racing, not completely cleanly, but that's another story for another day. Robin Herd had just been at Cosworth, left McLaren, did the Cosworth four-wheel drive car, and then there was Max Mosley. And the long and short of it is Robin Herd had a plan. He knew what car he wanted to do. He worked with some other people that have crossed over between Cosworth, John Clark and people like that. Peter Wright, the late Peter Wright, who did the side pods. So that Herd had a plan. Reese knew what the plan was. Coker knew what the plan was. Mosley knew what the plan was, but decided not to go with it. So
Surprise, surprise.
Now, to be fair to Max, it's we have to acknowledge what a superb salesman he actually was, because March literally, and for the readers, but I've got the old March book by Mike Lawrence. It's Spawn, Men and Telephone, and that literally is all they had. When they started the I can't remember the exact date in November. I think it was 23rd of November, something like that. They barely had anything. Bicester back then was not a motorsport hub. Became a motorsport hub partly through March. Really, there was nothing there. And the plan was to support Ronnie Peterson. You mentioned about the three teams, the three works teams or semi-works teams. But the whole plan originally was Ronnie Peterson, because he'd driven the Formula 3 car, the first car they did, the 693, and it was always going to be Ronnie. Then things developed. Chris Amon came along. Ronnie had to go with Colin Crabb in the end, an independent. So that went by the wayside already, and we're not even in 1970 yet. And then basically word got about from Mosley. Alan Rees tipped him off, but Ken Tyrrell and Matra were going to split. So Mosley did what any aspiring businessman would do, and got onto that. And to be fair, he got Tyrrell out of a big hole that they were in. But then he just couldn't help himself, really. And then Andy Granatelli came along, and he kept saying yes, 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 yes. And to be fair to Max, although Robin's plans had gone completely AWOL, this was something that Robin did all the years after. Robin, as many people describe Robin, he could never say no. So this happened repeatedly along the March history. So it's always been a case of either politics or over-promising, or just opportune salesmen, really.
Because Mike Lawrence in his book talked about the fact that Robin was keen on developing the Cosworth four-wheel drive car and to put Jim Clark in it. Is that right?
Not, but I mean, there was a lot of stories and a lot of smoke and mirrors at the time.
Right.
The idea was more Rindt, Jochen Rindt, because there were a number of opportunities with Rindt. One was for Robin, forget March for a minute, one was for Robin to go with Bernie Eccleston and Jochen Rindt and work on a car there, which Robin does admit a few years later that is the route he should have taken if he wanted to be more successful. So,
Right?
yeah, Bernie had the money and the organisation, and again, whatever we think about Bernie, his organisational skills are second to none. Rindt would have obviously been a world champion in the making in '69. Obviously, he did in '70, but he would have brought the success, and Hurd could have concentrated on what he was really good at, which never really happened at March, was the technical design. Then they wanted Rindt for March, and obviously there's a story which is fact, and then there's a story which may be fiction. The story which is fact is that Rindt went over to Graham Coker's workshop, where they were building the 693, because it's all they had before they moved to Bicester. And he said to them, look, you will never be successful. You are running a machine, and this is a thick Austrian accent, which I'm not going to attempt, but he basically said Gremschek, which is Graham Shack.
Graham Shack. Oh, right.
Yeah. And Max and Robin loved that so much, but they called March Gremschek Engineering for quite some while. So Rindt eventually did not go with the project. The story that might be fiction, and all the founders are dead now, so we will never truly know, but this has been suggested by somebody at the time, is March stands for a number of things, and obviously much advertised racing car hoax is one of them. but that's and I think Mosley embraced that as well. But conventional wisdom is the M is for Mosley, AR for Alan Rees, C for Coker, H for Hurd. There's a story, but the R was not for Rees, because why should Rees get two letters? But the R was actually for Rindt, to basically encourage him to be part of the team as well. So he would be the team leader, but also he would have a bit of managerial, without being too involved in it, but he would have much more of a say. So you're not just a driver, but you've got a active interest in the team as well.
Isn't that interesting? Because I've heard several people over the years have said that had things panned out differently, that Jochen would have gone effectively into partnership with Bernie in running Formula One, and that clearly if he hadn't gone to Lotus, if Monza had never happened, the Formula One world would be a very different place even now, wouldn't it?
So I think when Rindt said no, they didn't immediately have a backup plan. I don't think. Reading between the lines. And then they were kind of, well, we'll support Ronnie and try and attract Chris. Because I think the problem they had with Ronnie is that obviously then he hadn't even made his Formula One debut. He had a fantastic talent. Then he got injured at in a race at France in Formula 3 where he overturned and got some burns. So they were also not entirely sure about Ronnie's fitness. But, he wasn't the fittest at the best of times. So, they were worried about that. And then Chris Amon came along. And that's where they approached him. And as I say, it kind of mushroomed from there in terms of, well, hang on, we can do this. People seem to trust us, so let's go with it.
And is there any truth in what I've also read about Joe Siffert's drive being paid for by someone else?
Well, it wasn't paid for by Joe, no. It's Rob Walker was involved, but I don't know yet. We haven't unearthed that nugget yet, but I'm coming to it, I'm sure. There is talk that Rob Walker basically subsidised Siffert's drive. The short of it is, but they would not have taken anybody on, with the exception of Eamon because they'd already committed to him, or taking anybody on without funds. And the short of it was, but that's why they took on STP. Ken Tyrrell was paying them. They would have got the money for, not that Siffert was ever a pay driver, but the fact that he brought some stuff on was fine, which is why they were able to then put Peterson in the Colin Crabbe, because that also reduced their costs as well.
So that was another car, wasn't it? That was the sixth car.
That was still, what, the Peterson one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was still the 701.
Yeah.
But what they basically did is, so they had all the car building going on, and bear in mind they were also doing Formula 2, Formula 3, so you had all the 701, 702, 703s, and so on and so on and so on. And then basically what they did with Ronnie is the two guys from Colin Crabbe, was only two, basically came down to the Bicester workshop. They had a little bit of space in the workshop, and they built the same car for Ronnie. So Peter Bracewell, whose name you might have come across, the former BRM chap, it was basically him and one other chap. They put the car together. Same with Tyrrell, all the Tyrrell chaps. The ones I've been dealing with a few years ago, Roger Hill, Rowley Law, Neil Davis, they came over to Bicester, they built their bit. Bob Dance, who we associate with Lotus, obviously, but he was with STP at the time, so he built the Andretti car. So actually March were building a huge amount of cars, but they weren't also building the STP and the Tyrrell. They kind of told people to come in and build their own cars. And Ken, being Ken, he wanted a safe car. And he told Robin Herd that. He said, I don't care, make it fast, make it slow, we'll tweak with it, but make it safe. And that's what Robin did. He kind of compromised a few of the other things he was going to do to make the 701 safe, because he knew, the money that Tyrrell were bringing in, or rather Walter Hayes and Ford and, the background behind Tyrrell were bringing in to make it safe. So he had to make the 701 easy enough for the likes of Bracewell or Bob Dance or, Roger O'Rowley to make and Tyrrellize or tweak as appropriate.
The time when March entered Formula One was, to me, very exciting because all the cars were different. Everything looked different. And probably the most different looking of those cars for me was the 711 with the T-tray front.
Yes.
That was wild, and that was Peterson's first foray. Correct? Have I got that right?
Yeah. Well, as in a proper car.
In a proper car. Yeah.
The 711 was the car that Robin wanted to do for 1970. Okay. That was always the plan, or what became the 711, I should say. So as I say, he had to compromise with the 701 to make it safe, to make it, relatively straightforward for people to produce. Not just other people, as I said, the Tyrrells, the STPs, but for March's own guys. It had to be simple for them, but also due to the commercial weight and commercial pressures, he needed a car that would get to the grid. And bear in mind, I can't remember when the South African Grand Prix in 70 was, but it was pretty early on.
Yeah.
And bear in mind, I said, but they really only started 23rd of November. and you've got to build five World Championship cars. Whoever's building them, you've got to get them there. You've got to test, and obviously this is Kyle Army, so it's not as if you can go over on the ferry the day before. You know, you've got to go over there before. So Robin immediately realised, no, I can't do what I want to do. But then with the benefit of having got all those cars out, and to some degree of establishment of where they were, and the fact that they were doing quite well with a relatively basic car, then he had a bit more time. Got Jeff Ferris involved as well. John Clark was still involved in the background. Peter Wright had moved on, but Peter Wright was never with March. He was with Specialised Mouldings, but Robin decided to go down a different route, and so he could do a lot more with the 711. Frank Costin's the T-Tray idea was Frank Costin, brother of Mike, but Robin was able to interpret more ideas that he wanted to do, but also work with Frank, work with Jeff, work with other people like that. So it was a bit more of a dedicated design effort, as it were, than the compromise, but the 701 was. And March, really, if you look at what they did in Formula One, was relatively, it wasn't amazing. They won in comparison to other things. Perhaps what they did, in 1970 in the early years, what they did with what they had was amazing. But the results, we're not talking about World Championship winning cars, and barely Grand Prix winning cars. But what they did do was dominate Formula 2 for many, many years. I'm talking domination,
Yes.
Formula
It was
3.
hard to have. It was without a doubt
it
the
was.
car to have.
Yeah, and so many drivers either won championships or won races or basically progressed because they had a March Formula 2 car or Formula 3 car.
Yeah.
So they did well there. A March car has won the Daytona 24 Hours. There are people that don't really associate March with Formula 1 at all because they associate it with IndyCar. And March in America is known more, not for the Formula 1 efforts, but it did. Not many people remember the STP efforts or the links that they had with Penske back in 74, 75. They remember IndyCar and the explosion that March had from 81 till about 88. But 29 of the 33 cars at one Indianapolis 500 were Marches, which is a remarkable. It does. You have to compute your mind to think, how on earth did they do it in such a small stage of time? And obviously they won multiple races, and then obviously sports cars as well.
They had such success at Indy, and we'll document that in a minute. Why do you think that they struggled so much in Formula One? Because certainly the technical side of IndyCar racing at that time was fairly free, not as free as Formula One, but March was the first to go 200 miles an hour in qualifying. They obviously could build fast, aerodynamically sound race cars. How come the whole Formula One thing never flourished?
I think it was the timing, to be honest. IndyCar I'll come back to in a minute because they were kind of perfect storm, but kind of worked for them. With Formula One, you've got to bear in mind that the focus was largely on production racing cars. It wasn't Formula One was not their first focus. Now, you could argue, well, hang on, you've got Lotus as well, and Lotus were not just a Formula One team. But I think there's a bit of a difference between Lotus and March in terms of background, in terms of the leaders of the, Chapman was very set on what he wanted, whereas Mosley and Hurd were not necessarily always at the same. Hurd was kind of concentrating on being a salesman and a technical designer as well. Mosley was trying to concentrate on sales and race engineering because of the situation that he was in. And I think that, let's say, for example, McLaren at that time were solely Formula One. Well, sorry, they weren't solely Formula One, they were Can-Am, etc. But they were solely racing. Brabham were solely racing. Ferrari are solely racing. March, their money was coming from production cars. So I think the perfect storm is, at that time in the 70s, they never really had the money and the organisational know-how to put it all together. And I think that's why they struggled in the 70s. The IndyCar was much more of a perfect storm, as I said, because at that time they weren't doing Formula One. This was 81. So they weren't doing Formula One. And Robin said, but, yes, we were winning in Formula 2 and Formula 3, but it's not proving that profitable. Long term, it's not proving that profitable. How can we develop the business? How can we take it further? And that's why the business got much more behind IndyCar, because there was the opportunity. Yes, there was a March car with the Ram, John McDonald run, but that's a separate. That's not.
Yeah.
Arguably, there are people who say they're not even Marches, they're Rams. But anyway, that's a separate story. So they didn't have that concentration. Mosley had gone by then anyway, so it was solely Robin, and Robin could give a lot more concentration himself to March, even though he wasn't designing, because now, say 71, 72, it was mainly Robin with, as I say, Jeff Ferris or somebody like that helping along, but it was mainly Robin. By 81, he had a team of designers. He had designers that have gone on to do a lot. So he had Tim Holloway, he had Alan Mertens, he had Graham Humphreys, he had Ian Reid, he had occasionally Gordon Cuppock and Ralph Bellamy were involved as well. So whether they weren't always on the payroll all at the same time, but there was a kind of team working together. So Robin could give his vision a lot more, and he also had the design team that came together to do a lot more. So the One Piece.
Adrian Newey joined at around that time.
Newey comes along very shortly.
Yeah, okay.
But and I deliberately didn't mention him, but Mertens and Ian Reid and people like that started to put the initial thing together, but it wasn't until Ralph Bellamy came along, and bear in mind that he was heavily involved with Peter Wright in the ground effect. So Bellamy's expertise was much more in ground effect and stuff like that. He came up with the one-piece wing, and that was a game changer. So when you put Reid, Mertens, Holloway and all that together, then that made a difference with Bellamy's wing. Suddenly March, because they struggled early, as you would. They actually struggled more with IndyCar when they started than with Formula One. But then what they were able to do is dedicate a lot more. So you mentioned Mr. Newey. He came along in 82, and eventually he was sent as a race engineer to Bobby Rahal and Truman Sports. And he was able, with Bobby Rahal, and you had to have the right driver, but Rahal was that. But they
Great
were
development driver.
and patient man, good, a friendly man. Ray Howard, fantastic. He's helped with this book as well. He's been superb. But he and Newey worked very well together. And Alan Mertens went over to be a race engineer as well. And for those that know their American IndyCar, obviously he later joined up and founded Galmer Engineering. And that was partly because he was already over there in America. So they were able to dedicate a lot more, and Mosley, as I said, when you've got a dedicated race engineer and a designer at the same time, which Newey was, you can tweak your design. Now, Newey is a brilliant designer, but any designer can tweak there and then. And this is what Bellamy did and Gordon Cuppock did and people like that. Because they were doing the race engineering at the same time, the feedback they got, if it was good feedback, they were actively able to tweak that. Go back 10 years and Mosley is your race engineer. No, he had technical nous.
Yeah,
but he was not able to translate what, say, somebody like Joey or Stuck was saying into the same way, but Bellamy, Newey, and so on would be able to do, because that is the nature of their nature of their thing. So I think in a nutshell, and that was a long nutshell, but I think in a nutshell. That's the difference of why IndyCar was so great and why Formula One wasn't.
And it wasn't just IndyCar. I mean, from 81 to 88, March kind of dominated the American racing scene because it came along right when the GTP era came along.
Yes.
March, their first Indy win was 83. They won 5 straight, like you say, 29 cars on the grid one year. And they won the Daytona 24 Hours with a Porsche engine. And I think in some ways the success of that car in 84 and how good March the 83G was really forced Porsche's hand to build the 962, because people were starting to put the Porsche engine in the back of the March chassis, and the guys in Stuttgart didn't like that.
The win that the Creepy Crawley car had in 84 was very much, it was a deserved win, but it was somewhat fortuitous, and
Sure.
it's just
Well,
they had success without kind of meaning to go for it, and maybe that was the way forward.
Now, Richard, you've mentioned a couple of times that there is a book in the offing, and I'm sure you wouldn't do all this research just for love, but nonetheless, there is a book which is coming. Your book about Tyrrell was hugely well received, and that it was an absolute treat for all of us to get involved with that. Do we have any indication as to when a book might surface?
It's due, all being well, it's due to come out next year, 2027. Exact date, not sure. As you can see, well, as we've just discussed, there's so many paths and avenues to go down, but it's kind of also what do we put in and what do we leave out. But we want to be as comprehensive as possible. I want to be as comprehensive as possible. So I'm hoping for summer 2027,
Can I suggest a 2-volume set?
you can, but in the really, if
There's
money
so
and the
much good
publishing,
stuff.
if the publishing world was right, I think it needs a 3-volume set.
Yeah.
Personally, I think you need a Formula One, Formula
Yeah.
2, and then
Everything else.
USA.
Yeah. Well, when that joyful day arrives, Richard, we're going to put you through the mill again, because there
That's
is
fine.
so much more that we can talk about with March. And I have one last question for you before I let you go. Was March Engineering a business venture or a race car manufacturer?
Good question. I think initially a business venture, then it kind of morphed into racing, then it kind of moved back into business. I think there was a period, probably mid-70s, where they kind of realised, actually, we're not bad at this. Formula 2 is going well. I think the focus was to take on Chevron. I think there was a focus on racing. And then perhaps once Mosley had gone 77, right. And Hurd was the only kind of leader left, it was basically Hurd's business, effectively. I think he then realised, there are business opportunities here, and ultimately the death of March, which is something we haven't even talked about, is largely because he wanted it to be a business. He put it on the stock exchange, and it all kind of went downhill from there because they solely concentrated on it being a business and forgot that it was a racing team and a racing car manufacturer. They appointed a washing machine managing executive who kind of felt, well, racing cars it's a business.
Yeah.
I made and sold washing machines. I can make and sell racing cars. It's not the same.
Thank you, Richard. That's a fascinating answer, and it only really reinforces my thought that you're going to have to come back and talk about some more, because there is so much of this subject to talk about. But for now, Richard Jenkins, thank you very much indeed.
Right, my pleasure.
Now, Jim, I know that you were pretty impressed with some of the things that happened at Meekham's auction last month, and they're sort of going in a different direction, aren't they?
Well, they certainly did this year at Kissimmee. That's their annual kickoff event. In years past, it has been a headline event for them. As you recall, last year they did over $640 million in gross revenue, and that is often pushed forward by Kissimmee. In 2023, they set a record there for $229 million. Last year, it was $215 million. This year, they got out a very, very large sledgehammer, and they got the record out there on the block, and they hit it, and it shattered into 1 million pieces. Almost 1 billion pieces.
You're sounding all wrong.
It was 432.9 million pieces. They more than doubled their previous records. It was an unbelievable show. The star of the show was a 1962 Ferrari 250 GTO. While that doesn't necessarily sound different than other things, this was Bianco Special. This was the only Ferrari 250 GTO to leave the factory in a white paint scheme. The car was purchased by John Combs New, driven by Graham Hill, Mike Parks, Roy Salvadori, Richie Ginther, to name a few. Had two runner-up finishes at the Goodwood RAC Tourist Trophy in 62 and 63, so it had a decent racing provenance. Was not the original engine, however, and that may have hurt the sales a little bit. It did reach the reserve, which was $5 million, and the final sale was $38.5 million. And while that seemed a bit... Meekham is a victim of their own hype many, many times. As you recall, a year ago, the Porsche 917 that Brian Redman had owned at one point was a big deal, and it didn't sell because Jerry Seinfeld had the reserve so high. He eventually sold it right after the auction, so they were very close to the reserve and that sort of stuff. But the purchaser of this, normally when these things are done, you don't really hear about the purchaser, but the man who bought this car stepped forward right away. He was so thrilled to have it. He bragged at Monterey earlier in the year that he was going to try and make a good run at buying this car. David S.K. Lee, he's a Silicon Valley tech titan. He has a massive Instagram following about his Ferrari collection, which he's quite proud of. And the cool thing is he really loves to share the collection. So this car isn't going to get tucked away in a private collection someplace. I am hoping, because it had such a great Goodwood history, that we might get to see this car at Goodwood in the near future. It's the type of car that would get invited, I would think. Paul Tarsi and Paul Jerd, you would probably know better than I, but given that it is an ex-Graham Hill and a podium finisher, and that he's a gregarious, he has a great reputation in the car market as being a fun, approachable guy. If you see him at a car show and you want to talk Ferrari, you have a friend for a while.
So effectively, you're actually saying the car has gone to someone who will understand and appreciate it, rather than someone who's seeing it as an appreciative asset.
Very much so. Very much so.
That's reassuring, I think.
Yeah, and hold that thought, because that very thought, Paul, you didn't know it at the time, is going to come into play again here very shortly. Now, Paul Tarsi and you and I were talking earlier that really, because of the hype, there seemed to be a fair bit of disappointment, and I did a little research, and part of the reason is that you know what the record is for a GTO?
I don't know. I would guess probably 55 to 60 at auction.
Private transaction, $70 million to David McNeil, the founder of WeatherTech. He bought a 1964 Tour de France car winner and a fourth place 1963 Le Mans chassis, and so that one went. So that's why the 38.5 for a car this rare was a little bit disappointing, but it was still, for Mecum, it was an outstanding show.
So Jim, it's disappointing to everyone bar the person who actually bought it for that price.
Yes, exactly. Just to kind of recap some things, the reason that this car that we're talking about here was kind of the star car of the show, but there was a Ford GT, a 1966 factory lightweight, one of only 3 or 4 made. This was originally ordered by Allen Man Racing. That sold for over $12 million. 53 cars in one boat sold for over $1 million. They had a 75% sell-through rate, which isn't as good as it would normally be. 8 of the top 10 cars, and this is where it gets interesting, were Ferrari supercars. So this was a bit of a departure for, they'll sell a Ferrari occasionally, but this was a bit of a departure for Mecum, and mainly it was driven by the sale of the Bachmann collection. It's a Ferrari collection of 46 Ferraris that were offered at no reserve. Total sale of the 46 cars, $125,199,000. There were 20 world records. Of the 46 cars, 20 of them set world records for that particular make, and they're all Ferraris. So that
was some collection in that case. They knew their cars.
Many of the cars in this collection were one-offs. And I said 20 world records. 5 of those world records were double. So if the previous world record was, $6 million, it sold for $12 million. And there's another, you're talking about a bubble. Well, there's another fact that has to be taken in, and the U.S. market has become isolated from the European market because of our current administration. We don't talk politics on this show, but it's a fact that there is a 17.5% tariff on any car coming into the United States. And when you add that to the soft dollar that's currently the truth in the world market, the young timer supercars, for lack of a better term, at Euro spec won't be coming into the United States very much this year. And in fact, the market is kind of completely dried up because cars aren't coming in because of the tariffs. So the desirable cars from the 70s, 80s, and 90s are going to, if they're already in the U.S., they're of a much higher demand. And that's what happened at Kissimmee, because you had 46 very desirable supercars. The buyers were like, this is an opportunity to get a car. They're not going to wait to see what happens at Retromobile in Paris this month, or what happens at Roland Garros with Broad Arrow this month. They don't have to pay the tariffs, and
So
we're going to buy now.
That's 17.5% tariff, Jim. That applies to new cars and to what we might laughingly call used cars, second-hand cars.
Any car brought into the United States, not made in the United States.
Right, okay. So that's going to affect the European and UK markets, because there won't be any American buyers chipping in.
Might not be. Yeah, that's right. The boat was a great story. I have to digress just for a minute. I mean, we talk cars almost all the time, but this boat was cool. It was called Miss America 8. It was a 2-time winner in the International Harmsworth Trophy. It was built in 1929. It was, at the time, the fastest boat in the world, clocked at 104 miles per hour on the Harlem River in 1931. There were only 10 of them built, Miss America 1, 2, through 10. Only 3 of them remain. It was made of Philippine mahogany planking. 75% of the boat is still original. But this is the thing that blew my mind. What made it so fast? The boat was powered by 2 Harry Miller of IndyCar engine fame. 2 Harry Miller built 1,113 cubic inch, that's 18.2 liters to you and me, double overhead cam V16 engines making 930 horsepower in 1929.
It was the days
Sold
of the
for $2.2 million.
Now, you see, I can get more excited about that, and I know that we're probably going to get all sorts of people contacting us. I can get more excited about that than I can about a 250 GTO.
Oh, sure, yeah, that's yeah. I agree with you. I had a wonderful conversation with Luigi Canetti Jr. one time when the first GTO craze, 250 craze started, and they were selling for $30 and $40 million, and we were talking about, at Goodwood, the race had $120 million worth of cars in it, and that sort of stuff. And Luigi says, I don't get what all the fuss is about. And his great New Jersey, I don't get what all the fuss is about. That's what we used to drive to lunch.
Yeah. There is just one thought that crossed my mind when you were talking about that white GTO, the John Coombs car, and that is that, yes, it finished on they didn't have podiums in those days, but it finished on the podium at Goodwood. Gentlemen, I was there.
Hey.
Were you really? That's awesome.
My dad
That's race
took me,
dropping.
and
Sorry, we're talking back in the real Goodwood days.
Yes.
Oh, none of this revival stuff.
No, I was there in 1962. I would have been 10.
You were in short pants.
Yeah.
No, you weren't.
I was 10 years old.
Yeah, you were still in short pants.
I can remember that we were sitting in a grandstand at the chicane, and that whilst the chicane itself in those days, bear in mind, was brick.
Yes.
none of this polystyrene, and the bit that wasn't brick was metal barriers, just like crowd barriers. And I can remember a 250 short wheelbase, which is still around, which is Vincent Gay's car, the silver one with the yellow cross stripe that goes across underneath the windscreen. And I can remember that going through the metal barriers and making a tremendous noise as it clattered through that. And that was me at 10. So I have no excuse, and I should blame my father for my addiction that I have. But
bad influence, obviously.
Yes.
well, thank you for that, Jim. That brings to an end the first half of the show. that we'll talk about a few bits and pieces in the second half. We'll be talking to Tim Foster and to Andrea Seed, and we'll be catching up on all the latest news about the upcoming season.
You're listening to the Historic Racing News Podcast, a copyrighted presentation of historic racing news in association with White Squirrel Studios. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or usage without the expressed written permission of Historic Racing News is strictly prohibited. Now back to the Historic Racing News Podcast and Paul Tarsi.
Welcome back to part 2 of the Historic Racing News Chat Show, powered by Race Retro. We're all getting excited about Race Retro, and a few days ago Jim and I caught up with Andrea Seed, who's putting many of the features of that event together. Now, I guess that you probably have gathered over the last few months of the Historic Racing News Chat Show that we are getting quite excited about Race Retro. It's a great thing. I mean, I've been going for many years. Sadly, I mean, we were supposed to be having a presence there the year that it got cancelled because of flooding. But it's a great event. Always been something which is very special. And we're joined here in the studio with somebody who knows Race Retro inside out and upside down. That's Andrea Seed. And Andrea, I think you've been involved with Race Retro for quite a while.
So I've probably worked on Race Retro for about 17, 18 years. I was brought in by the founder, Ian Williamson, as the show was expanding to look after the press side of it, the PR side. And then after he sold the show onto Live Promotions, my role expanded to look after all the features, the talent, and to really evolve the show for the visitor experience. And then when Live was selling Race Retro, I was already working for Clarion Events, who are now the current owners. I've worked on their classic motor show and restoration show I was one of the founders of the restoration show, and I've worked on the classic motor show for 21 years. So I'm like old mother time. I've been around a long time with my shows. Yeah. So yeah, I've seen a lot of changes. I've had some great opportunities through Race Retro and the people we've worked with. So yeah, it's probably one of my favourite shows to be involved with.
It's come on in leaps and bounds, hasn't it? Because back in those early days, I mean, I can't claim 18 years of attendance, but in those early days, it was fairly agricultural, I think it would be fair to say.
Yeah, the cow sheds in February were not a nice place to be, were they? And we you know, it used to be a bit spit and sawdust, which we're trying to, you know, we've kind of brought it up in the world a little bit now. But I do remember there are times where, you know, our guests are being interviewed in the stage in Hall 3, which has since been refurbed, I hasten to add. And we've had to put a bucket on the stage because it was peeing it down outside and the water's coming in the ceiling. Not the best look, you know. Murray Walker and Sterling Moss sat next to each other having a good old bit of banter with a bucket in between them. The constant drip. It's not what you want, is it?
The glamour of motorsport.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sounds like one for the book.
Yeah, definitely. But what's been great, I think, about the earlier years of Race Retro, those characters that we used to have then, like Wizzo Williams and Murray Walker and Sterling and Barry Lee and Norman Jewis and things like that, is that they had no filter when it came to their stories. So you got the best stories. You had some brilliant stories out of them, where I think the more modern drivers have to be so careful about what they say and are a little bit more guarded when it comes to those indiscretions, shall we call them. We've had stories about cats on tea trays being launched across swimming pools and setting fan dancers' fans on fire, and all sorts of wonderful stories that had nothing to do with racing whatsoever. So yeah,
but I think the whole Race Retro thing has been gaining momentum for several years now, and certainly sort of 5 or 6 years, and that it had become, even prior to this year, it had become a place where racing people and rally people and rallycross people and all sorts arranged to meet. And,
Yeah, definitely.
and it's changed again because obviously with the demise of Autosport International, which at one time, quite a few years ago, was the place you met, doesn't happen now, does it?
No, and I think there's always been a strong affection for Race Retro because it is the clubman's event. You know, it is entry level grassroots motorsport. You know, whilst yes, you'll get to see an F1 car and you might get to see an F1 commentator or a driver, but it is about grassroots. It's about affordable motorsport, and it's everything from if you're an armchair enthusiast who just wants to watch and just enjoy, right through to if you're a racing driver, a rally driver, a series, organizer. You can literally get everything. You know, whether you want a bit of memorabilia through to the latest part, spare, race suit. You can even go and get your race license at Race Retro. You can have all your medical checks and everything done there. So there has been a lot of affection. I think, you know, especially post-COVID, it's been hard for us post-COVID. And I think, you know, that year we got cancelled because of the floods was devastating. As a team, we were absolutely distraught. But last year, God, did we come back with a bang. You really did. And the the feedback we received was amazing. And I think when because I'm responsible for the features, so Hall 3 is a lot of my baby. When that last F1 car got in place, I think I was literally on the verge of tears because I was just like, yes, we've got it, we've done it, it's great. So now this year is like the difficult second album. You really top that. So yeah, pressure's on.
Jim, you haven't been to Race Retro before because you're coming over especially from North Carolina for the event. And what is it that's really appealing to you from what you've heard so far?
Well, partly I'm excited because I've had to listen to Paul rave about it for the last 3 years and not be able 3 or 4 years and not be able to attend myself. So that's very exciting just because it's had a great build up. But obviously being an old rally guy, I'm very much enthused to see the rally cars and the rally people and the stage, but also from the clips we've put up on YouTube and from other things, it's a panoply of stuff. I mean, there is everything that I could think of that I might want to see is going to be there, whether it be an auction or cars on display or meeting people. I'm really excited to meet the fans because you don't get a pulse of a sport any better than when you can interact with the fans. And I'm very excited to do that. And to be able to see what their likes and dislikes are and just kind of mingle. And you know, I love memorabilia. I love books. I just, this is going to be sensory overload for 3 days for me.
I think you need to bring an empty suitcase, Jim.
Yeah, I already have. Well, in last month's show, we did have a discussion that if I could convince my wife Betty that the car that I might buy at Iconic followed me home like a puppy, and can I keep it? And but.
So what can we expect, Andrea? Give us some highlights.
Well, because of I think this year the level of exhibitors is a lot higher. The brands that we've got in are a lot stronger, which is great. Which is allowing us to be a bit more choosy, really. We've still got the traditional Auto Jumble in Hall 2A. Obviously Iconic's got quite a large presence and they've got some amazing cars lined up. But for me, in terms of the feature side, so one of my responsibilities is the Talk Motorsport stage, where everybody will be able to see you guys a couple of times a day with your Corridors of Power and your interviews. But also that's where our guests will be. So our special guests for this year is a rally legend. He has been to the show before, but he's always a joy to have, and that's Stig Blomqvist. So he will come in, and not only is he going to be interviewed on our Talk Motorsport stage, he's actually going to be doing passenger rides out on the live rally stage on Saturday and Sunday. So the opportunity to sit next to Stig and when he does what he does is amazing. It is amazing. And I've seen him take people out before. What an experience that'll be. So yes, that's very excited about Stig. It's always great to have him back. From racing, and this hasn't been announced anywhere else yet, we've got Alex Brundle joining us for a first time. Obviously, you know, he's following his dad's footsteps instead of broadcasting, but also a very accomplished racing driver himself. So he'll be with us on Saturday and Sunday as well. Maria Costello will be with us on Sunday, the motorcycle rider. That's really good. We're really pleased about her. And then we've got a fantastic mix of BTCC drivers, other grassroots rally drivers. Nicky Grist is with us again because he was so popular last year. He's back. So the Talk Motorsport stage schedule is absolutely rammed. I'm at that stage where I'm like, you know, we're all going to be just, you know, not stopping all day. It's literally going to be one thing after the other because there's so much to get through. And then in terms of feature displays, we're celebrating the centenary of the first GP at Brooklands this year. We're working with a fantastic bunch of lads at the Crossley Motorsport Foundation who are all currently studying mechanical engineering at university, and through Crossley they have built and ran their own Le Mans car, Jowett Jupiter, that they built and restored, and they did really well. I think they come 5th in their class. But all of those boys, through doing the work they do with Crossley and the different cars they work on, they've all got placements in F1 teams.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
all of them. So I think one's at Aston, one's at Williams, one's at Alpine. So they're just the nicest bunch of lads. So we are working with them because, you know, we've got to nurture the next generation. And historic motorsport is not just for oldies.
No,
You know what I mean?
no.
The word historic doesn't mean you've got to be over 50, over 60 to get involved with it. You know, young lads can be involved in historic motorsport, and you know, it's a great way to get involved. So we've got those guys. Got a GT40 enthusiast display, so we're celebrating the 1, 2, 3 at Le Mans. So we've got that as well, and there's a few more that I'm going to keep up my sleeve for now.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Yeah,
Keep
yeah.
us all guessing.
Treat 'em mean, keep 'em keen. That's what I say.
I mean, the GT40 enthusiasts display, as I understand it, is exact replicas of
Yes.
the first 3 cars.
Yeah, absolutely exact. So you probably won't tell much of a difference. But so we're very excited to have that. That'll be a real sight to behold. And then we've also got our Pride of the Paddock competition, where we invite private individuals to display their race or rally cars, and we've had some fantastic cars enter that. So there's 16 chosen to display at the show, and then visitors will be invited to vote on which one they feel is their favourite, be it just because they like the look of the car, or they've spoken to the owner, or the history of the car, or whatever really floats your boat. And then we'll announce the winner on Sunday afternoon. So yeah, there's I always say, oh, that's going to win, and I always get it wrong every year. Rubbish. I never get it right, but there's some phenomenal cars and a great mix of race and rally cars in that. So you won't be disappointed if you head through to Hall 3. There'll be a lot of content to see.
I think one of the things that really appeals to me is that you've got, I think it's 12 series race organisers.
Yeah, the most we ever had this year.
Yeah, and so if I were younger and fitter and much more able, then I could arrive and walk around the halls and say, right, sell me your series and tell me what it is that I've got, a Malak, or I've got a Lotus Cortina, or I've got a Formula Ford, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And that there's probably 2 or 3 different people who will try and persuade me to go and do their series.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's the most we've ever had this year. And we've got brands like Caterham, you know, in with us as well. And, you know, there's just some, you know, Radical are with us and I think a radical only haven't been for years. So it's great to see those people coming back, and I just think it'll be a really strong show and really take Race Retro up a level, which is great.
You have some go-kart representation too, don't you?
Yeah, so we have on our outdoor displays on Saturday and Sunday, we have a demonstration of historic carts, which are just like zips. They're just whipping about. That's really great to see. So Historic British Kart Club have displayed it every year and always do these phenomenal displays for us. And people will just focus on the rally cars. I suppose, there's 100 rally cars whipping about, and that's just such a spectacle outside. But try and get outside early and see the karts too, because crikey, can they move.
Will Oscar be there, Paul?
my grandson is a very capable kart racer. So no, he won't, unfortunately.
Oh.
But at 10 years of age, I think it probably would go over his head to have historic cars.
But I tell you who probably will be karting, and that's Ed McDonough, who is, I understand it, is the oldest karter still going.
Wow, yes.
Now,
yes.
if he isn't, he's going to swipe me one when he sees me at Race Retro for being cheeky. But I'm sure he is, because he's in right old age.
Do you know the expression, when you're in a hole, stop digging?
Yeah, nah. It's never worked for me. No, I'm sure I've not made that up. I'm sure he has said to me he's the oldest license holder in karting.
Wow. That's something.
Who's still karting, and he'll be on the demo team, definitely.
Well, that will be good, and you're absolutely right that people do need to just take the opportunity, because this is such an unusual event in that you've got stuff happening outside, but it's also live action. It's real stuff.
And you can walk around the Parc Fermé. There's no restriction around the Parc Fermé. You can walk around. You can see the cars. You can talk to the drivers. In a safe way to do it. I think the biggest thing we have to get across to people is there is no live action on Friday because of the site. It's not because we don't want to put it on. It's because the rules of the site, because there's offices, there's all different businesses in Stoneleigh Park. So to be respectful for them and for health and safety reasons, we can't operate on Friday. But people come on Friday and go, where's the live rally stage? It's like, no, it's just Saturday and Sunday. But obviously people don't read as well as that sort of stuff, do they? Don't read the actual details.
Just like
America.
Exactly. Amazing.
Yeah. So Friday, but you'll also find Friday will be your diehards and a lot of tradey people on Friday. So if the ideal thing to do is come for 2 days, do the inside on Friday, and then dip back in for what you need inside on Saturday or Sunday, but then go and see the live action. And the live action runs a lot longer now than it used to, because it used to be like just sort of an hour and a half in the morning, an hour and a half in the afternoon. So there'd be this mass exodus where Tim Foster and Rallying with Group B now have extended that. So apart from like a 45-minute lunch break, it's on from, start to finish of the day. So there's a lot more opportunities to see.
Yeah, I am surprised when I've been talking to people about Race Retro, how many people are going for 2 days.
Yeah, definitely, because I think it's, especially if you're somebody who likes to chat and see people, and it's a very social event. It always has been. I remember back in the days that you'd see people, they'd be at the fire engine bar at 10 o'clock in the morning, they'd still be there at 4 p.m. because they literally positioned themselves, and all their pals came past, and you get to the end and go, did you enjoy the show? They went, I didn't see it, because I've just been nattering all day to different pals as they went round. So it's always been known for being a very social event. And that's one of the things I think that gives it its personality.
And I think one of the other things is that if you go to the NEC, you have to take a mortgage out on your house to buy a cup of tea and a sandwich. And it's not like that at Stoneleigh. I mean, that things like the catering are reasonably priced.
Yeah, I mean, look, any event you go to, it's a higher premium than if you just go into your local cafe, but it is quite reasonable. And you've got the catering that's within the halls. There's a sort of pie and a pint area in hall 3 where there's a bar, there's coffee, there's sort of food. There's also a lovely farm shop on the site that's always there, that you can visit as well. There'll be sort of catering vans out on the rally stage, so you've not got the massive queues. Quite reasonable prices, good standard. So yeah, and obviously parking's free, which is another bugbear at a lot of places you go to now. You're spending 20 quid on parking a car, whereas parking is free. So that's always good. Just be mindful that the weather, if it's a bit like today's a dismal wet day where I am, bring good footwear to get through from the car parks to the halls.
Yeah. But
do you have good bacon sarnies?
Oh, do we just, Jim?
Thank you,
Yeah.
Jim.
Jim is the only man I know who has smuggled bacon into the
I'm the
United
last
States.
of the great bacon smugglers right here. I beat the beagle.
So yes, British bacon is very high on the list.
Good.
But we're very much looking forward to being there and obviously to seeing so many of our listeners and friends when we're there. But I know you've got an awful lot to do, and that you've got a busy time in the few days that's left, or the couple of weeks that's left.
Yeah, definitely. And then we're already prepping we've got, as a team, as the organising team for Race Retro, we've got another show 4 weeks after. So I am plate spinning at the moment, but all good fun. Keeps us out of trouble.
You're doing it well. So.
Thank you.
We'll let you go.
I'm like a swan, calm and grace on the surface, pedaling like you know what underneath.
Andrea Seed, thank you very much indeed for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
We'll look forward to talking to you at the show, and we'll see exactly what that brings.
Yes, we'll see you there, and Jim, we'll see you in the cafe for a bacon butty.
There are lots of ways to keep up with historic racing news. Our podcast comes out on the first Wednesday of every month. The 2-hour show includes interviews with drivers and other personalities from years gone by, plus news of historic events like the Goodwood Revival and the Silverstone Festival. And Jim Roller keeps us up to speed on happenings stateside and looks at the activities both on and off the track in the USA.
And you can also follow us on our YouTube channel, HRN Chronicles. It's our version of a time machine. We have archive features, exclusive interviews, and behind-the-scenes stories going way back into the history of our glorious sport. Plus, we keep an eye on the latest classic and competition car auction news. It's a place where motorsport's history lives.
And don't forget our amazing Facebook page. With over 1 million views a month, it is one of the leading social media channels for the historic racing fan. We feature tales from years gone by, news from around the racing world, and we also take the opportunity to flesh out the stories we cover on our podcasts with photographs and yet more background information.
If you would like to find more editions of the Historic Racing News podcast, try searching Historic Racing News wherever you get your podcasts.
The YouTube channel is simply called HRN Chronicles.
And just search Facebook for the Historic Racing News page.
Now back to the Historic Racing News Podcast and Paul Tarsi.
Paul Judge, you've been having a look at the on-track calendar for 2026, and there are quite a few weekends of note.
Certainly are. Actually, looking into 2026, there's plenty to look forward to, and also some indications, I think, and the historic racing marketplace is just getting a little bit more competitive, and also that newer cars are becoming more attractive to racers looking at historic, or probably they don't use that word, racing. Certainly we're seeing interest in the cars from the 2000s and into the 2010s, which to me do not seem that long ago at all, but are certainly now easily within that historic fold in certain areas. And for example, Motor Racing Legends have got a new series, Endurance Icons, for GT and sports cars racing 1995 to 2012. So very similar to the Masters Endurance Legends series I've commentated on for the last few years at Brands Hatch in May, and also the Peter Auto series in Europe. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of these do for grid sizes. And Motor Racing Legends have been busy actually over the winter, because they've also announced GP Icons, which is going to be Grand Prix cars, and I'll come more to that later.
Paul, do you think that in the States, vintage car racing is dominated by HSR, which is a division of NASCAR now, and the SVRA, which has just recently been sold, and it's part of a bigger thing with Trans Am and a whole festival type event that arrives with support series and everything else of professional ladder series and the Trans Am and SVRA events. Is the European and UK way of doing this, where it's Peter Auto and these other groups, is that a good thing for the enthusiast?
I don't know. I think that's probably a question we could spend a whole podcast on. It's certainly interesting. By definition, you expect a company to make a profit, or at least cover its costs. And there's only so much money to go round in motorsport, isn't there? And I think the longer that anyone at any level has been involved in the sport, I think the more they become aware there's a lot of people in motorsport willing to help you turn your small fortune into not much of a fortune at all. And and certainly in the UK, we've also seen a number of clubs who've been long-standing parts of the motorsport scene cease their racing operations in recent years. Aston Martin Owners Club, MG Car Club, etc. Is it survival of the fittest, survival of the fastest to adapt? But it's also interesting that I think there's been a bit of an adoption in Europe of what HSR are very, very good at. They're running their meetings for their competitors. If any spectators turn up, then that's fine and dandy. And you're starting to see that now. There's quite an emphasis now with people on the competitors' experience, the hospitality, the etc., what they're doing in the evenings and everything like that. So certainly, I think there's a move towards that. But there is definitely a change going on, I think, with the cars where the focus is. When you look at that move towards current cars, and one man's historic racing is another man's surely. That was only a couple of years ago. And this year we've got the Le Mans Classic Legends, first weekend of July, 2nd to the 5th, which is the Le Mans Classic having a jump forward in time. And essentially from this year onwards, the meeting's going to be held annually, but it's actually going to alternate between two complementary events. This year we've got Le Mans Classic Legends, so 1976 to 2015, that time span again, coming virtually right up to date.
I've got underwear older than that.
Do you know what? I've got clothes older than that as well, and I really shouldn't brag about that. My eldest, who's 30, gives me so much. I took a picture the other day. She said, I got a picture of you wearing that T-shirt when I was a baby.
My tongue is bleeding right now.
I just wanted to move on before anyone pictured what you just said there, Paul. And also, if you want, this is bad. So then in alternative, 2026 Le Mans Classic Legends, 2076 to 2015, and then in the alternate years we've got the Le Mans Classic Heritage, what we're used to from the Le Mans Classic 1923 to 75. And I've got the blurb here: a journey back to the golden age of endurance with legendary grids and a decidedly vintage atmosphere. I'm sorry, anyone who regards 1975 as vintage is going to get a stern talking to from me. But this year's event, the Classic Legends.
I don't know, Paul. That was not 50 years ago.
It was yesterday. I was at school. I can tell you still who all my best friends were and what we did at lunch and everything.
Did you have friends?
You only had two. So.
I did have friends. That's a bit harsh, isn't it? Well, that's how I
walked right into it. I mean,
that's how I saw it. I don't know if they viewed me in the same way, but interestingly, actually, for this Le Mans Classic Legends, they've dropped using the word plateau. We always had the plateau at the Le Mans Classic,
yes.
And they've now started calling them grids. But for the new event, they've numbered the grids going on from the grid number. So the first grid is grid 6, turbo era, 76 to 82. Grid 7, and I think this is the one that's going to be of interest to everybody, Group C racing, 1983 to 1993. So we'll see those Group C cars on track, I think it's 4 times. over that 24-hour period. So it's pure night racing as well for Group C. That's going to be absolutely spectacular. And again, they talk about legendary prototypes, and they list a few. Typically French, isn't it? We've gone for the Peugeot 905 Evo as the top of the list. No mention of a Jaguar at all in there or anything like that. Jaguar, Spice, C2 doesn't get a mention, to be honest. But hey ho, moving on.
Or the Renault. I mean, the 76.
That's going to be in Grid 6. That's going to be in the earlier grid, the turbo era. So it's the turbo era, 76 to 82. Group C, 83 to 93. Grid 8 is going to be Endurance Racing Legends 1994 to 2000, so McLarens, Porsche 911 GT1s, etc. Amazingly for the French, they failed to mention the good old Venturi, if you remember that car.
Well, and Audi R8s if it's 2000.
Well, yeah, we're sneaking into there, aren't we? Just about. And in fact, they mentioned the R8 in the next Grid 9, which is the Endurance Racing Legend 2001 to 2010. And then we round off with Legends of Le Mans, which is 2006. So a little bit of an overlap there to 2015, but that is GTEs, LMP prototypes, etc. It's going to be an interesting weekend, to be quite honest. Usual support races, including one for GT3s, and I think that is going to be quite an experience, and it's going to be interesting to see if they can sustain that now as a yearly meeting. They obviously feel the interest are there, the cars is there, and they can pull it off.
Well, they have had full capacity crowds recently. They've had 230,000 people. I can remember going to Le Mans Classic when it was me and un homme avec un chien, and there was nothing more than that. But coming back to the UK for a moment, Paul, amongst all this, there's been a fair amount of turmoil regarding Carfest and the Silverstone Classic and the battle for dates and market and everything else.
Oh, totally. The Carfest, which is typically in the south of England, been held at on Jodie Scheckter's estate, actually, in Hampshire, is now moving on. Jodie's moving to Italy, I do believe. And that's going to the Silverstone, and it's taken that August slot where the Classic was. The Classic has now reverted back to where it was in July, and it's the BRDC Classic this year. And the event actually ran for many years in July before, benefiting actually from the infrastructure in place for the Grand Prix with the grandstands, etc., was then moved to the August bank holiday, which meant it travelled all over the Autumn Gold Cup meeting, which had run at August bank holiday for many years, and they had to go and find a new date. But this is going to get really, really interesting, because one of the features of that Silverstone Classic for many years has been that the historic F1 cars from Masters Historic Racing, but they've actually got a meeting at Monza that weekend, and their cars are still on the bill. I checked on the internet just before we brought that in. But, and there's always a but in these situations, isn't there? Motor Racing Legends, as I mentioned earlier on, have announced their new Grand Prix GP Icons series for this year. 3-litre F1 cars, 66 to 85, so covering the same time frame as the Masters series. And of course, MRL have now got the hugely competent Rachel Bailey, who worked for Masters for many, many years, with them. So it's really going to be interesting to see what cars go where. And in recent years, I think it's been a little bit noticeable. We've had less cars coming over from the continent for these meetings, certainly for Brands Hatch in May. Will Silverstone be that big a lure, or would you go to Monza if you were on the continent and you had your F1 car? We're also seeing those MRL's new endurance icons at that race meeting, and it feels to me like it's a step back to the Classic of yore and away from the direction the meeting had taken that I think not everyone approved of, and a real return to a focus on the racing and the cars.
Yeah, but it always troubles me when series like this, like you said earlier, there's only this piece of pie that we're carving up is only so big, and when they start infighting amongst each other, it's not good. It's not good. Nobody wins.
No, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be and you think that the people who are doing this are well aware of that scenario, and it's going to be was it going to be spanners at dawn or something?
now full disclosure. Go ahead, Paul. Sorry.
I was going to say that you mentioned it, you touched on it briefly there, Paul, that one of the things is not only are they competing for entries and therefore money, they're also competing for dates.
Yes, there's only so many weekends to go round.
Yeah, 52 as a matter of fact.
There's a lot of them in this country you don't want to go racing on, trust me.
Yeah, in reality there are probably 35, maybe 40 weekends that you can race on, and not everybody wants to race at Alton Park in November. It's not a bundle of laughs. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see, isn't it?
Very, very much so, I think.
Full disclosure here, Paul, you do a lot of work with the Equip Classic Racing. In fact, we'll be talking to them at Race Retro, I believe. They've got some huge plans, don't they?
They have, as ever, lots going on, and a full season ahead, which actually ends with their Liebfried, which is always entertaining pre-1966 cars on historic spec tyres. So these are cars that move around under the driver. Always great to see them racing. And they're actually off to consecutive weekends at Portimao in Portugal and Jerez in Spain at the end of October and just into November. But the really exciting news is that they're actually running their first championship. And it's virtually, I think, the first championship of its type, certainly in the UK, the Equip Historic Championship. And again, that is for these pre-66 cars. It's going to be a whole season featuring 7 1-hour races, and I think they've also relaxed their rules on pro drivers, so potentially we can see that wonderful situation where you've got the owner and a hot shoe. And I'm going to be fortunate enough to be commentating on almost all of these, and that lovely scenario, isn't it, where you're working out who's in the car. Is the quicker driver going to come in? Is the driver in the car trying to pull away? And it's going to be absolutely superb and well worth watching. There's going to be Elans, Cobras, E-Types, and so many other great cars in the various classes. And there's a lot going on, as ever, with them. And they're also running a British sports car weekend at Donington in July, which is going to feature a round of this championship on the Saturday. But on the Sunday, we've got a whole variety of historic, essentially one, or in some cases two, make races. So there's going to be races for ACs versus Jaguars, a pure race for Lotus Elans, a race for Austin Healey's, which is going to be the John Chatham Trophy, named after one of the most famous Healey racers ever, Mr. Big Healey, John Chatham. And last year we had a 1-hour race just for Healey's at Silverstone, and it was one of the best races I've ever commentated on. Firstly, the field was spectacular. I think there were 40 plus Austin Healey's on that grid, but the racing at the front and the last few laps were absolutely stunning. There's also going to be races for MGs, A's, B's, midgets, etc., for minis, and I think that's going to be a real great weekend. But it's also, if I'm correct, the same weekend as the British Grand Prix, which is happening just down the road. But come to Donington Park, because frankly there'll be better racing, more overtaking, and it is certainly cheaper to get in. And Jim, you mentioned clubs and businesses running series in motorsports, and Rob Cull and John Pearson always joke that they're effectively not-for-profit motorsport. They just want to get out on track and enjoy themselves as much as all their competitors. And they're also teasing another big announcement to be made at Race Retro. But we've spoken lots of race dates, lots of things. Have a look at our calendar on our website. It's not got everything, because that would be dang nigh impossible, but an awful lot of what you can go and enjoy across 2026.
Do you know,
it's a labor of love for you, Mr. Jerd, that calendar.
I find it strangely satisfying to do.
Patting ourselves on the back, you do a great job with that.
Well, hey, thank you, gents.
Yeah. You mentioned about not-for-profit business. I've run several non-for-profit.
Isn't that all racing?
I've run several non-for-profit businesses, but they never set out that way. That was just me getting it wrong.
It ultimately turned out to be.
Now, one of the things about Race Retro is that even at this early stage of the season, you can see cars driven at speed. And Jim and I talked to the man who puts all that together. Now, we've all been looking forward to Race Retro, 20th to the 22nd of Feb, and we've talked about the event becoming the place to meet your motorsport buddies and all sorts of other people at the early part of the season, and to be able to sit down and talk about what you're going to do. As an Australian friend of mine used to say, get together and tell a few lies. But it's one of the features which sets Race Retro apart is that there is a live rally stage outside the exhibition, the closed exhibition halls, for the Saturday and Sunday of the event. Now, when Historic Racing News got the opportunity to talk to Tim Foster from Rallying with Group B, there was one particular member of the HRN team who elbowed his way to the front, and that, of course, was our tame rally expert, Jim Roller.
Oh, you're so kind, Paul. You're so kind. Quite an American thing to do, I guess, nowadays, to elbow your way to the front. But that's a conversation for another day. Tim Foster, thank you for joining us. Tim is the man who is in charge of all of the rally stuff, and is also very influential in the world of the historic Group B rally cars, which is something that is very near and dear to my heart. As a former rally co-driver and driver during that era, it is when Paul Tarsi told me that we were going to get a chance to go to Race Retro. I was like the fifth grader in school. Oh, me, teacher, me. And Tim, welcome. I'm very excited to talk to you, and I'm very excited to see what you have in store for us in a couple of weeks at Race Retro.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for the invite. Well, lots in store, really. Very, very much business as usual with regards to what normally goes on at Race Retro on the live action stage. On the outskirts of the perimeter of the venue, we get involved and do as much as we can and try to entertain the crowd best we can with some beautiful old and some new rally cars.
Can you, at this point, before the event, give us any sort of hints as to what cars we might be seeing out there on the stage?
Well, we'd like to get a cross of all sorts of cars, really, from historic minis, original sort of minis. We have Stig Blomqvist turning up again in a mini that's been prepped and run by a chap called Ian Hunt. He brought Rano Altonen to us last year. So Stig's going to join us on the rally stage. I think he is going to have a presence inside the show, but he's not coming as an headliner this year. He's coming purposely just to actually do the rally stage. So that'll be very interesting. So we have characters like Stig and vehicles of that sort of era, right up to current modern day sort of OR5 cars, which is the modern day sort of era of rallying. So, and everything in between. So Audi Quattros we keep. Group B's thin on the ground these days, simply because we're as we've said once said in a podcast before, I think with you, that unfortunately Group B's been a victim of its own success over the years. To be honest, it was a victim of its own success back in the 80s when it ineffectively got banned, or the rules changed so that they could no longer run. All those cars then vanished into collectors' hands and in the back of garages, and became very, very affordable to buy at that particular time. And now now we've found something or places for them to go over the last sort of 15, 20 years, really. They've now rocketed in value again, to the point where they've sat at the back of garages again, and nobody ever wants to use them because unfortunately they're too much money. So yeah, we've had a victim of success there from over two separate periods, really, probably 20 years apart, maybe to 40 years apart even now, thinking about it. And it doesn't, where does time go? So we do still get Group B, and we get the variants of Group B, the vehicles that were homologated, things like the Opel Manta 400 and those sort of cars as well. And
love those.
Yeah. So we will have some. We've got James Avis is coming in. He's RS 200, which is a genuine factory car with 6 R4s. With Audi Quattros. Some are replicas, but you won't tell that they're not original cars. People get fanatical these days of replicating these vehicles, and once of a time people used to just put stickers on a car and make it sort of look something similar, but nowadays people are sort of absolutely fanatical about getting the sort of accuracy of these cars right. So yeah, we'll have lots of different variants. There'll be a massive span of cars from, like I said, from minis right up to modern day cars.
So Tim, you're talking about everything from minis to Group B rally cars to the modern day rally cars. That is an unbelievable performance envelope. How do you prepare a stage that's safe for all that, safe for the spectators? That's got to be a huge challenge, isn't it?
It is a huge challenge, and we start the stage build and preparation from the Wednesday. We can't really close any roads off, but all the relevant sort of precautions are taken for the safety features, anything that's off the road. We use large Eston bales. We've found they're the best. They're the best in the grounds of safety. They're the easiest to handle. I know the big bales, and I know we get a little bit of criticism of the scenario of it does take away the viewing element slightly in places. But safety is paramount, and we're very proud of our reputation really at Race Retro and every other event we do. We never have any incidents, touch wood, and I hope that's not jinxing us. But we're always very cautious. We're always very worried about safety, and it does take some considerable time to build the whole arena, if you want to call it that. It does take a considerable amount of time, way more than it would to actually go into a forest and set a forest up for rally cars to go through, or even another single venue. We like the spectators to be as close to the action as they possibly can. We've opened up the past few years. We've opened up various different areas. Once at a time, you can only see the perimeter really of the action, and now you can walk right into the centre of the stage, and you can pretty much see the full stage from the centre of it now. So we've put a lot of effort into actually making sure spectators can get close to the action, but that also means that we have to now make sure that we put more protection in. We have to put more runoff areas. We have to put more bales into places that could just slightly deteriorate from the viewing platform, if you will. And it's a constant moving goalpost really, and as cars develop and move on, things get faster, quicker, and we have to take that into account on every occasion. So
one of the great things about Race Retro is the ability in the halls for fans to get right up close to the cars and see the displays. And as we've already talked, Race Retro is a meeting of friends and people of like minds. How much access will fans have to, for lack of a better word, your paddock and garage area?
Yeah, we're passionate about that as well. We need to, we like people to get up close. That the scenario, we want things to be as realistic as they possibly can. This is only a demonstration, but we emphasise to the drivers that they have to drive within themselves. They have to drive within sort of, we don't want them at 10/10s. They have to be at 80%, for example, and just drive within themselves and be safe. And you tend to find, to be honest, it's the last 5% that's creating the problems anyway. So if we can dial it back, but that means we also want the same thing from a spectator point of view. So we want to put on a show, but then even from a paddock point of view, we want people to get up close, just like you would do in a real traditional service area. You want to be able to stand around the car, watch it being serviced, watch them change gearboxes, watch them change wheels, because that's entertainment as well. So we encourage people to go into the service area, have a look around, watch what's happening. Just obviously be careful, be aware that it's a live area, and we have speed limits in there, and in the driver's briefing for the entrance, they're warned to drive at a very slow pace through that and all the crowd areas and stuff. So, but I'd rather that be the case than exclude people from that area, and then people are having to look over big fences and look into sort of certain areas and not be really getting the same viewing platform.
I love that you call it the service area. That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect, because that's what it is. How do events like Race Retro help to nurture the history of the sport? The current FIA World Rally Championship is probably at an all-time high in visibility because of the great advances in technology and television that we wouldn't even have thought about back during the Group B era. It was just too frightfully expensive. How do events like Race Retro help keep all those memories and keep the pace or the exposure of the sport going?
Yeah. I mean, you can go anywhere really, to be honest with you, and watch a rally if that's what you so wanted. If you were passionate enough to go and watch a rally, or that much of us, of a lover of rallying that you could want to go and do that. But to drag yourself into a forest in the middle of in the middle of November, for example, in the snow and the ice, it excites me, and still at 60-year-old I could still slightly get excited about that. But in the era, and you would only go and watch potentially cars of a similar age and discipline, really, or class. The good thing about events like Race Retro is that we've got a massive span of cars, and you will see everybody somewhere down the line when they're watching at Race Retro will actually recognise a car from a particular era. The Group E era is massive. I mean, you wouldn't believe the amount of, I suppose it will eventually die in the sense of enthusiasm. I don't know, maybe it will, maybe it won't, but we're still in that era of people like myself that it was the holy grail of rallying in its day. I don't think there's ever been anything else since. I loved the F2 era of the Formula 2 cars, the 2-litre front-wheel drive cars. That was a massive era for British rallying anyway.
Yeah,
and there was a period of time when that was fab, and I'm quite close to that. I'm into the front-wheel drive cars anyway myself, but but that was a big passion for me as well. But yeah, so I mean, you can get to a situation where you can go and somebody will recognise a car at the show or at the rally stage, and you're not just going to stand out, get cold. There's an opportunity to go inside, see lots and lots of things inside the show. Go and purchase things. Most people will be involved in the motorsport trade or albeit as an hobby somewhere down the line. They can go and buy accessories for the cars. It's a pre-season opener, isn't it? So any last minute things, any last minute deals that's wanted to be done, by oil manufacturers or tyres or equipment, or it's the place to go as well. So to quote a phrase, it sort of kills more than two birds with one stone, really. You can go and see everything you want to see and watch a little bit of rallying. There's obviously historic karting as well, which we've got, and over the past few years we've expanded it to the sort of off-road buggies, sort of what we call safari rallying, which is sort of big Land Rovers and prototype things that they've built. We get that involved as well. We've dragged in a little bit of rallycross cars as well over the past few years as well. So we're trying to, and we do the modern. Like I said, it's not really some of the events. Some of the cars themselves aren't necessarily retro, but then what do you class as retro? Everything's retro to somebody, isn't it? So so we do want to portray an image of that discipline across all the years, because somewhere down the line somebody is, it is retro to somebody.
Absolutely, it's a conversation we regularly have on here that that retro for somebody who's born in the early 60s perhaps is very different from some retro that was born in the early 2000s. I was interested that you were talking earlier on, Tim, about the fact that with Group B the cars were they went out of fashion, dare I say, after they were effectively banned, and then they found their feet again, and that after a couple of ups and downs they're now at a place where they are really very expensive pieces of kit. I was watching something on YouTube a while ago of some rallycross from, I would think, probably the late 90s, and there were RS200s and 6R4s, and I thought, yeah,
it was scandalous, wasn't it? If you're looking back now, it was just scandalous, wasn't it? It's like, if only we knew.
Yes, because I looked at it and there were sort of 6 cars on the grid or whatever, and I thought, that's probably over £1 million worth of stuff now.
Oh, way more than that. Yeah,
Yeah.
way more than that. Just wow, just incredible value in these cars now, and and I'm glad through various organisations, but especially Rally Group B, that we've been in a position to increase the value on, or given them an arena to increase the value of these vehicles and put them back where they really deserve to be. Really, they were incredible machines. They've created a massive amount of history and memories for a lot of people, and that carries on and carries on and carries on. It doesn't stop that. The amount of visitors we get that come for the Group B stuff, but which is why I've touched on it really, because I always feel quite passionate, and I mean, we're very lucky last year. We had, if you remember, we did the tribute stand for Steve Davis, who was a founder of the group, and we did a tribute stand, and we had 22 Group B cars on the stand. All of them, or most of them, genuine original cars. We had the road car versions right up to the full-blown factory cars, and that was incredible. And so they are out there. If you want them to come, they will come. But they're obviously passionate. For a static display, it's not a problem. They'll happily bring them and show them off because that's what they want to do. But you say get out there on that rally stage and flash and and probably create thousands and thousands of pounds worth of damage that needs repairing. It's difficult, and I understandably I wouldn't want to do it, so it's
let me ask you a personal question about this, because in my world of circuit racing, probably at least 50% of the historic race cars that you see out on track are in better condition and better prepared and better rebuilt than they ever were in the 50s or 60s or 70s. That you're saying about the Group B cars, and that they are immaculate and so forth. What's your own personal feeling about that? Should they be a bit like a well-worn hat, or are they supposed to be perfect?
I think that's the best description, a well-worn hat, to be honest with you. I've had a period of time in my life in restoring cars, and some of those were Group B cars, and my emphasis through the company of rebuilding those sort of cars, ex-factory cars, was to keep them as original as they possibly could, even though they may not just look as pristine as they would if they'd have come out of the factory, because you've got to keep some history in these cars, and there's a chap that brought, I'll not name names because he gets enough publicity, bless him, but there's a chap that brought an Audi Quattro, an S2 Quattro, last year, and put it on the stand, and that's just been so highly documented. He's just actually gone all over the world and collected parts, genuine parts, and put this car back together, and people sat in that car. He allowed people to sit in it, people with a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience of cars, and they sat in it and just said it just feels like a car of period. Everything was just, and if he, if he put some seats in it, that were a bit tatty, then they stayed a bit tatty, as long as they were all right, and that sort of thing. There were so many period items on that car, it was amazing really, and that was the right way to do it. The right way to do it, if you're restoring one, building one, or doing whatever, is to keep them. So you keep them tidy, you keep them clean, you look after them and maintain them and make sure everything's okay. But never take the originality away from a car like that. In any historic car, whether it's a rally car, race car, never take that history away from it.
Yeah, you want to be able to do the DNA test on the seat and find the DNA of Walter Rorrell and Stig Bloomquist, and you want that perspiration in there.
And just as a matter of point as well, we've also just forgot to mention really, but just back to the public and spectators, we over the past few years, we've obviously created an opportunity for them to get in one of these rally cars and actually have a passenger ride. So that's fantastic for them as well. I mean, that's something you certainly couldn't do if you went up to Grisdale Forest and. So that's a fab opportunity as well, and I'm proud of being able to bring that. We take great pride in the safety of doing that, and making that a possibility for a lot of people that will never ever have that opportunity to sit in a rally car.
Let me tell you, Tim, that when the passenger rides are announced, just look out for a very fast-moving American who's going to be right at the front of that queue.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Guilty as charged.
Tim, thank you very much indeed for coming on the show, and I'm delighted that you're going to join us on stage on Friday of Race Retro on the 20th of Feb. Race Retro runs, of course, from 20th to 21st and 22nd of February, so not long to wait now. Tim Foster from Rallying with Group B, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure.
Tell me, Paul and Jim, the not gruesome twosome, the charming pair. No, I remember her. That was something different. But, have you got your bags packed for a Race Retro, Jim? You can have more bags than Paul or I. Are you ready for Race Retro?
I am, and I'm getting very excited about it. As you heard earlier, Andrea suggested that I bring over an empty suitcase. I'm planning on doing that, and not necessarily to smuggle back bacon, but certainly to bring back some memorabilia and books and that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'm jazzed, ready to go. You'll be arriving the Tuesday before at London Heathrow, where the Baron and I will recreate the closing scene of Love Actually, and it will be
I can see you there. I can see you there, Paul, with your little card with Jim's name on it, expectantly looking at the arrivals gate.
I'm going to have the card that says, "Glad you're home from jail."
Exactly.
We've got a busy time when we're there. Paul, you're all packed up, are you, and ready to go?
Yeah, very much looking forward to it. As we've said before, it's I think it's replaced the Autosport International very much so this year, because that's not even happening. As the place to sort of that little tick box of starting the season, and you go there to see some cars. It's almost a reminder of why we do what we do, isn't it? Because it's strange. I always find this as part of a season when you go, oh God, it's Silverstone again this weekend, which is a terrible, terrible thing to think. And then you get to about now, and I drive miles to watch one Formula 4 go round and round testing. But yeah, you just walk in, and you just walk into it, and there's so many fantastic cars there. It's also a reminder of just how diverse and active and growing this area of motorsport actually is. And plus the fact, you walk around, and certainly the very lucky position I've been in, where you just bump into people after people that you know.
Yeah, and we're going to be busy. You're going to be busy. There's plenty going on.
There certainly is. We're going to be there obviously all 3 days, and on Sunday I'm going to be talking to the guys from Elite Classic Racing about their ambitious programs for 2026. A lot of which I've almost given away, haven't I? But we can flesh that one out with them, and they're an entertaining duo anyway when they are up on stage. And there's always something new that they're planning. And also, given Jim's questions earlier on about running historic race series, it'd be interesting to get some sort of behind-the-scenes information from them about just what it takes to run an operation like Equip. But as I said, I'm just really looking forward to meeting people. And if anyone listening is there, don't hesitate to come up and say hello, because I love to have a chat about the sport that we have in common.
Oh, we all do, and we all echo that, Paul. Because one of the things I'm excited about is meeting some of the fans. I get to meet some of our American fans at the races, but I'm really looking forward to meeting some of the folks that tune in and taking their questions and proving to them that I'm maybe not as obnoxious as I sound on the radio.
Ooh, what do you think?
It's a tough ask, isn't it?
I think underneath that hard exterior beats a heart of gold.
Yeah, that's right. On Friday, I'm going to get to talk to Tim Foster, and even more in depth than what we talked about here. Friday, of course, there's no outdoor activity, so that gives us a good opportunity to lock down Tim so that he can talk to us about what we can expect on Saturday and Sunday in the rally stage, something I'm very excited about, and talk about Stig Bloomquist and some of the other fun stuff that is on tap for Race Retro this year. Very excited about that.
And on Saturday, I'm going to be talking to the legendary maestro of BP Motorsport from the 1970s, right up to much later in the century, and that's Les Thacker, who was the man behind the Formula 2 and eventually the Formula 1 Tolman team. Les will give us some behind-the-scenes insight into that fascinating time in motorsport. He'll talk about quite a few things that maybe haven't been public before.
Yeah, he's been posting, and we, I think, on our Facebook page have been reposting some wonderful old BP ads from that era, and
yeah, they're great, aren't they?
Yeah, and Saatchi and Saatchi, who was British Petroleum's ad agency, wasn't the one that did all the motorsports ads, which is interesting, and I'm hoping you can get him to elaborate on some of that when you chat with him.
Absolutely, and that I think Les was always a bit of a wild card in the BP hierarchy, and there's so many things that Les has said to me over the years of, well, the rest of the company did it this way, but I actually did it that way. So very
right.
much, and obviously there's a lot of stories. We're principally going to be talking about the Tolman days, and there's some great stories there. So
they gave quite a quick young Brazilian lad his first F1 drive, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah, they did, and go on.
Well, I was just going to say, wasn't there some BP sponsorship involved in some of those early Tolman days?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah,
and
that's what I thought.
That there all the different planets were whizzing round the sun as they do, and it was actually down to BP and to Les to pull it all together, to make sponsorship, drivers, engines, cars, team management, all of those things, and pull them all together. And I'm looking forward to talking to Les about that. And the other bit of great news for Race Retro is that Corridors of Power is back, and that the three of us and a range of different guests will be on the live stage on the Friday, the Saturday and the Sunday, doing different shows about Corridors of Power. Now, if you don't know about Corridors of Power, why not? But if you don't know, the principle is that we have a panel of specialists, and Jim and Paul both take a place on that panel, together with a number of guests that we will have from time to time, and we'll talk about their views on the best of, which might be all sorts of things. It might be the greatest single advance in race car engineering, if we're going to be serious about things. We've done that one in the past. But it might be something really stupid, like the world's weirdest sponsors. And when we ran that on this show 2 or 3 years ago now, it was Bill Warner who won the thing there with a NASCAR sponsor, which was Budrow's Butt Paste, which was for nappies or diapers or whatever you want to call it.
Diaper rash ointment.
After he'd done it, he actually sent me a photograph of the car. So
just to prove his point.
Yeah. Either way, it's a bit of fun, and we'll be doing that on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on the live stage, and in each case that'll be at 11:30 in the morning. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and so do come along and say hi. We're, as Jim has said, we're looking forward to getting an opportunity to say hi to everybody and to hear what you think about the show. But we are hoping to see you at Race Retro. Please come and say hello, because we would genuinely love to see you. If you can't make it, then drop us an email. That's Tarsey, HRN, TARSEY, HRN, @gmail.com. And let us know what you think. With any ideas or comments about the show, love to hear your thoughts on how it is. My thanks go to Richard Jenkins for that fascinating view on March, to Tim Foster, to Andrea Seed, and of course the dynamic duo of Paul Jerd and
I'll see you at the Batcave, Jim.
Yeah.
And the man who produces the show as well as appears, and that's Jim Roller. I hope that if you are at Race Retro, you'll come and say hello. If you can't make it, look forward to greeting you on next month's show. But either way, it's been a pleasure as always. My name is still Paul Tarsey, and if you have been, thank you very much for listening.